Hello again and welcome to episode 5 of Link's Awakening DX. With level 6 cleared, there are only 2 more dungeons to go, and they're pretty complicated. We'll be getting to both of them in today's video, which explains the video length. I may have also gotten just a little bit lost and a little bit angry, but hey, we only have 2 more instruments to collect before we have the full set, and then we have to figure out some way to play all 8 instruments at the same time. I'm pretty sure Link has only 2 hands, so playing all of the instruments at once might be a bit of a challenge. Or maybe the game will just hand-wave it, I don't know. So this bombable wall, all it has inside is a fairy fountain, so let's not bother with it. We have to return to the Southern Face Shrine area, actually, because it turns out that I missed a little secret. Underneath that Armo statue is a staircase leading to yet another secret seashell. Why did they actually bother, creating an entire map for the room with the shell? They could have just hid the shell under the Armos itself. It's not impossible to do. Oh well. We can now play the ocarina to get out of here. That's the only reason to come back in here. And now it's time for the most annoying puzzle in the game. Once you have, No, you need the hook shot in this area. You cross this gap with the Pegasus boots and the Roc's feather, but you need the hook shot for this puzzle. It is a puzzle involving a maze of signs. You have to examine each sign in the exact correct order. If you deviate from the order at all, as indicated by the arrows on each sign, then you will mess it up and you have to start over. It's very, very annoying, especially since you might not realize at first that the signs are pointing to other signs from their perspective. They're not pointing Link in the direction of the sign, they're pointing the sign in the direction of the sign. That probably made 0 sense. The point is, if a sign says to go north, then you have to go north of the sign and not north of Link's position. You know, I'm pretty sure it's easier to figure out just by looking at it, but after you have examined all of the signs and hopefully not accidentally exited the screen or maybe gotten killed by the enemies, you're never gonna get killed by the enemies, but still, it is a possibility. After examining the last sign, a staircase will open into yet another underground area. And I'm pretty sure it's under the water. I'm gonna pay attention when I actually find it. But you have to examine a lot of signs, as you see. And you do have to juggle quite a bit of items, since you have to lift a boulder in front of that sign in order to examine it. This should be the last one. And yes, I'm pretty sure the staircase appears on the water. So, was it under the water? Did we have to drain out that little area? Anyways, inside is yet another character cameo. This one is probably the most appropriate cameo in my opinion, because Wart here, or Mamu as he's known, they stuck with his Japanese name for some reason. He is from Super Mario Bros. 2, but apparently he got a career in music. So let's listen to him for the fee of 300 rupees. I will pay you 300 more rupees if you stop right now. I don't want to listen to this anymore. Oh my goodness, this is awful. This qualifies as music on Koholint Island? Seriously, Marin sings better than this. Anyways, this is actually the 3rd ocarina song, and you do in fact have to pay 300 rupees for this awful, awful performance in order to get it. Seriously, Link performs this song way better than these frogs do. So if this song is supposed to liven up on living things, why are there still bones in this room? Anyways, Wart is a pretty appropriate cameo for this game because if this is a dream world, it makes sense for a character who also comes from a dream world to be in this game. I'm pretty sure the original version of Mario 2, before they did that whole reskin thing, also took place in a dream world. But I might be mistaken. So, what are we supposed to do with a song that apparently raises the dead? Well, I don't know who tells you this, but with the 2nd level of the Power Bracelet, you can actually push the Weather Vane and find a staircase that goes underground, and you will find a bird corpse. This is getting pretty macabre. But if you play the Song of Resurrection or whatever, well, I did say this game was weird, right? We have to raise a zombie to continue with the game. And I'm pretty sure this was done for no other reason than to be weird, because the rooster here, he will follow you around now. He's not an item or anything. The idea with this guy is that when you lift him up, you can actually fly around like this. However, the rooster is very, very underutilized in my opinion. I guess he's sort of a predecessor to using a cuckoo to fly in Ocarina of Time, or at least fall slower, which is something you can do. We'll learn the rooster's purpose shortly, but first, I passed on this bombable wall earlier, and that's because you can't find anything in here without the lens of truth, or the magnifying lens, or whatever. Inside is apparently an invisible Goria, a very rarely seen enemy past this point in the Zelda series. He will trade you his boomerang for a shovel. He only trades the shovel, and you have to put it on the B button for some reason. Couldn't he just take the shovel from your inventory regardless of what was on the B button? Anyways, the boomerang is completely overpowered. It's sort of a secret item, and they just decided to make it kill a bunch of stuff in this game in like 1 to 2 hits. It's really strange. The hook shot is pretty overpowered too, so there are a lot of overpowered items. And here I'm getting the seashell that the ghost taught us about. So you can only find that once you've returned him to his grave. And just to the right of this screen, you can find another secret seashell that I passed up the first time because, well, honestly, I forgot it was there. But in hindsight, it is pretty suspicious to have that one bush on a tiny little island. So naturally, you cut it down and there's another seashell there. I'm pretty sure that makes 20 secret seashells, so we've got enough to get the final reward from the Seashell Manor. But first, on the way up there, we might as well do a little bit of extra credit, I guess. On this screen, there's yet another seashell under a bush. So, I've collected 21 secret seashells in case you missed one of the other ones. There are, again, 26 in total, and 2 that you can miss permanently. You don't need to collect all of them. Oh, and by the way, you can also apparently lift the rooster while in water. That was an interesting thing to discover. So if you return to the fisherman that you gave the hook to in exchange for the necklace/bra, you can find the photographer in the water for some reason. So hop onto the boat again and talk to the guy, and this very strange exchange occurs. Now that's a big one, alright. A big cheese, if you will, because we're going to take a photograph now, so it's a big... I literally just came up with that on the fly. I'm so good at this, and I'm so sorry. But hey, funny photo number, what is it, 11? I'm pretty sure there's like one more photo. Big cheese, that is so good. Okay, so we return to the Seashell Manor with all of our seashells, and I no longer have to worry about mispronouncing that word because I never need to say it ever again. So once you have all of the seashells, you receive a gift from the spirit of the Seashell Manor, or whatever. It is... what is it gonna be? It is... the Master Sword, apparently. For real, if you look at the artwork of this thing, it looks exactly like the Master Sword, but green. But hey, level 2 sword, or as the remake renames it, the Koholint Sword. It has the classic sword beam when you are at full health, and I'm gonna really clean up with this thing. I debated on not getting the level 2 sword until the finale, but I decided that I might as well get it now. I wanted to hold off on it because, honestly, I didn't need another reason to make the game even easier. Link's Awakening has not been as challenging as I remember. And there is actually another upgrade that someone has told me about. I know it's there, but I'm waiting until the end to get it because I don't want to make the game even less difficult. Anyways, we're in for a bit of mountain climbing. Once you have the flippers, you can climb that staircase and find this mysterious house here. I wonder who lives here. Well, apparently Luigi lives here with a bunch of chickens. Well, I suppose he's the one to tell you about the rooster because just a short walk from his house is a cave where we are going to find... Did I pick up a chicken? Okay, that was strange. Anyways, inside this cave is the key needed to unlock level 7. Level 7 is the last dungeon that requires a key to unlock it. And the rooster's only purpose in the game is to get this key, because this is the only item in the game that has such a large gap between you and it that you need the rooster's flight ability in order to get to it, which is kind of unfortunate. They could have used the rooster for a couple of other puzzles, but if they did, then that would prove annoying, because the rooster actually leaves once you clear level 7. I don't know, I just don't think they did enough with a rooster. If you could skip this puzzle somehow, either by getting into the dungeon without the key, or maybe just hopping over the gap somehow, then you wouldn't need the rooster or that song that you needed to wake him up at all. Actually, you need the song later, but we now have the bird key. Why isn't it called the eagle key, considering the dungeon is called the Eagle's Tower? I don't know. But I hope you don't wind up traveling all the way to the tower only to find that you needed a key to unlock it. They don't exactly warn you about that little detail. Anyways, We're almost there. Just need to brave a couple more caves. And that hole down there, by the way, that will send you all the way down the mountain, so you probably don't want to fall in there by accident. I mean, it looks just like an ordinary hole, so why would you jump into it? But still. There aren't any quick travel points up here, which might prove annoying. I also think there might have been a seashell up here, but because I collected the level 2 sword, all of the seashells in the game disappeared, even the ones you haven't collected yet, so it would be impossible for me to find it even if it was up here. And, you know, it might be annoying to you guys that I didn't collect all 26 seashells, but I don't need to do that. I mean, you only need 20 to get the level 2 sword, and they all disappear anyways. Besides, this isn't a player's guide. There are sites you can go to for that. Anyways, this bombable wall hides yet another fairy fountain. There's no reason for me to go inside. I guess if I wanted to recover that oh-so-important half-heart that I lost. And all of this might start to be looking just a little bit familiar. I mean, we went through a network of caves and tunnels up a mountain and have now discovered a tall tower on top of the mountain, which is our next dungeon. Does that seem familiar to anybody at all? Just a little bit? Maybe the appearance of the staircase going inside might look a little bit familiar as well. Maybe if there were, like, pig statues on the sides of the tower. Anyways, welcome to Level 7, the Eagle's Tower. Notable for being the dungeon with the most amount of floors in the game and very little side-scrolling action except for the boss, which is waiting for us at the top of the tower, naturally. This is where the game just gets a little bit confusing with the dungeon. There is, of course, a central gimmick to this one, which I will talk about once we get to the second floor. First, we have to traverse this locked door, so I kill all the enemies on this screen, except for the anti-fairy, I think that's what it's called, and hey, there's the key. That was pretty easy. So on this screen, I actually did a bit of a sequence break. See, I don't think you're supposed to do this with the boomerang to hit the crystal switch, but you can do that, and boom, there's the dungeon item. That was really fast. We got the mirror shield already. The mirror shield is probably the most underutilized item in the game, like even worse than the rooster. It blocks lasers from the Beamos and the Wizrobe's attack, but I'm pretty sure that's all it really does. It might be required for the boss battle, but I'm honestly not sure. Kind of a pointless item, really. But then again, the mirror shield hasn't really been all that useful in Zelda outside of the dungeon you get it in. Like, I might have to go back and replay some of the other games. Anyways, the gimmick of this dungeon is the roof of the tower is way too high for you to climb, so you have to knock it down a floor by destroying the 4 pillars. I'm surprised it doesn't fall when one of the pillars is gone, but, you know, I didn't build this tower, and I certainly didn't ask for another chess knight puzzle. But there you go. You get the map for solving that. That's not really worth it, but it does help in case you get confused and have to try and figure out where you're going. By the way, the boomerang can kill the anti-fairies. I'm pretty sure that's what they're called. The other enemy you can kill with the boomerang is called a bubble, I think. Oh yeah, that steel ball, you have to carry it throughout the dungeon in order to destroy the pillars. If you ever let it fall into a hole, don't worry, it just respawns right where you picked it up the first time. Almost like it's some kind of Zonai tech thing, with all of those respawning boulders that they have in the Zonai shrines. Here's the second pillar, it's not too far off from the first. The game actually remembers where you left the steel ball, so you can toss it over a gap or something and then approach from the other side in order to pick it up again, which is what you have to do a couple of times. In fact, in this next room, you probably have to throw it over that little barrier. And of course, the crystal switches are going to be very, very annoying. Like, you have to know where the crystal switch is and how many times you have to hit it in order to progress. Kind of annoying. And yes, I was too lazy to switch my items, so I just took the damage by stepping over the spiked floor. You can't hit the pillar from there, but throwing it over the gap was necessary, and I suppose I should deal with these things again. My timing was way off, so it took a couple tries to actually destroy them. So let's just skip to the part where I actually managed to blow them up, and inside the chest is the glorious compass! Foiled again! You know, now that I think about it, the sprite for the compass actually looks more like a chess bishop than a compass. The sprite in the Oracle games for the compass is way better. And at least there, you don't have to sit through a bunch of text in order to actually get the thing. And in this room, we are introduced to yet another cameo. This time, it's Kirby. Or Anti-Kirby, as I think the game calls him. But hey, it's Kirby. He sucks up things, and he'll suck you up if you're not careful. Of course, I did it deliberately because I just think this is amusing. Anyways, he can't be killed by the sword, so you have to use one of your other items, and this is one of the other very appropriate cameos for a dream world. Kirby is all about dreams, isn't it? Or something like that. I haven't played a Kirby game in forever. Alright, so, moving on. Ah yes, there's another Hinox mini-boss. This time he's colored red. I guess he's supposed to be stronger. He's not really that much more of a threat. Well, unless that decides to happen. He just threw me into the torch fired a beam at me and pushed me all the way back down to the previous floor, and I have to climb up again, but you can at least pick up another chest, as there is one up on the rafters, I guess these are. 20 rupees. Joy. That's the most sarcastic joy I've ever heard. So I climb back up, and I learn a new trick with this guy. If you trap him behind those holes, he can't pass over the holes, so getting him behind there is a very good strategy. And you need to kill him because he's got a key that you need. So, moving on, we have this type of enemy yet again, and you have to actually kill these because they spawn a chest on the other side of that gap, and that's going to be necessary later. So in this room, let's see, where did I leave the steel ball? I actually can't remember. So in this room, there's a keyhole block, and I'm not really sure what the point of it was. What did I unlock by spending that key on the block? Well, let's jump back to the room with the one-way door, and behind it is another one of these stupid floor tile mini-bosses, I guess, with an anti-fairy bouncing around as well. But for some reason, it can't pass over the holes, so eventually it gets trapped in the doorway, as you can see. By the way, all of these holes, I think every pit in the entire dungeon causes you to fall to the previous floor if you fall in, so try to avoid that when you're not supposed to do it. And you can't pass through that tiny little gap for some reason. This dungeon is just full of annoyances. 3 pillars down, 1 more to go. We saw it briefly in a previous room, so I just have to figure out how to get there, and that took a little bit of time, but eventually I did figure it out. It's all about where you place the steel ball and how you approach from whichever side you're supposed to go in. So I think I'm supposed to be in here. Ah yes, you have to get the ball over this gap, like I mentioned. And then once you approach from the other side, you can throw it this way. And apparently if you transition to another floor, all the enemies respawn, so I have to kill these guys again in order to spawn the chest again, etc. You can see why this got just a little bit annoying. Oh, and do you like bummable walls that need just a little bit of observation in order to find? Well, I got news for you. Level 8 has something really, really annoying in it, but I'll save that for later. So with the chest actually spawned, you can hookshot across and open it to find a single bomb. This game is taunting me, I swear. But yes, that's all of the pillars knocked down, and so the 4th floor, I guess, is going to fall down to the 3rd floor, or something like that. We can now access the top of the tower. So we just need the boss key, and we'll be out of this dungeon. So, time to backtrack a little bit. Thankfully, you don't need to carry that steel ball around, and if you fall down this hole, you'll wind up in the start of the dungeon anyways. And you also need to fall down this hole on the 2nd floor, as that will take you to a chest with a key. So, this hole that you have to fall in may be just a little bit more important to find than the other one that just leads to 20 rupees. Alright, with that out of the way, where to next? Ah, this staircase will take us up to the 3rd floor, and we can continue trying to figure out where to go. So if you head to the right, you will find the mini-boss of the dungeon, and he actually talks, which is unusual for mini-bosses. This is one annoying mini-boss, though. All he does is summon these bats, send them after you. After a couple of waves, it'll all be over, and he'll run away. Yeah, this isn't a threat in any shape or form. Maybe one of them hits you. It's unfortunate, but I don't think you can actually hurt them until they start attacking. Okay, I seriously hope none of you are bored by my dry commentary, but it is a little bit humid where I am right now, so maybe I should have saved this recording for another time of day. Anyways, with him out of the way, the warp back to the beginning of the dungeon appears, and I sure hope it doesn't decide to trigger. Okay, good. I did manage to moonwalk again, though. So in this room, you just have to push these 2 blocks, and a box will appear. Oh, that was a little bit weird. The enemy movement right there, did you see that? It actually changed direction. Killing those guys with a boomerang causes them to turn into fairies, whereas the anti-fairies only have a small chance of dropping a fairy. Anyways, there's the boss key, and oddly, there seems to be an entire chunk of the dungeon that has no purpose. Like, you need a couple keys to get into other rooms, but what you're supposed to do is use the boss key to get in here, hook shot across that gap, kill the Goomba that isn't in a side-scrolling area for some reason, and then head up the stairs. Now we're in the boss area. It is actually the only other 2-dimensional area that has a boss in it, besides the swimming part in the level 4 boss room. But that doesn't really count. You were swimming for most of it, and that wasn't even a real boss. Now this is a boss battle. You're fighting an eagle. I presume that's an eagle. It kind of looks more like a buzzard. But I decided to try a couple of different weapons on him, but the best way to hit him, honestly, is either with a sword if he gets in close like this, or just use the hookshot. The hookshot will always damage him if you manage to strike him at the right time. The boomerang, I don't think, does anything to him. So he's dashing around the screen very quickly, and he will also try to blow you off the tower by kicking up a gust of wind. And he's allegedly an eagle. Kinda reminds me of a certain Mega Man X boss, which is really interesting because the Oracle games on the Game Boy Color, they were actually made by Capcom, I think. They might have just been publishers, which is really weird, actually. Why would Capcom publish a Nintendo game? Why would they develop a Nintendo game? Really, really strange. Oh well, I'm sure I'll research it in time for the Oracle playthrough. I might do an Oracle playthrough in the future. So yeah, not much to say about this guy. Yeah, he just flies around the screen, you hit him with the hookshot, and sometimes he will try and blow you off the tower with his feathers. These can be blocked with the mirror shield, and if you push against the wind, you'll have enough time to block all of his shots without getting blown off. That's really the only use of the mirror shield that I can think of, in addition to solving one other puzzle later, but there's actually a way to skip that puzzle, which I will talk about. I'm just trying to fill dead air while this buzzard tries to kick up dead air against me. It actually would have been a lot quicker if I had a certain other item. But he did manage to get me into low health. Of course, I still had medicine, and there's another chest with medicine in the dungeon itself. I didn't bother picking it up because I've already got medicine. It would be redundant to be carrying 2 of them. You can't carry 2 of them. If you pick one up while you've already got one, then it just goes away, I guess. Anyways, after defeating the eagle, or buzzard, or whatever, you can get the Organ of Evening Calm, which, that's a really small organ. But then again, the Happy Mask Salesman apparently has a giant grand piano in his backpack or whatever, so who am I to complain about the sizes of instruments these days? I mean, geez, in that same game, the ocarina just transforms into a bunch of tubas or a drum set whenever Link requires it. Yeah, whatever. So just one more dungeon to go, and returning to Luigi's house. I just call him Luigi because that's what he looks like. I don't know if this is actually him. Well, he's having fun with a rooster. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the rooster never follows you into dungeons, so you can't even use him to break any of the puzzles later on. Oh well. Oh wow. For some reason, Marin is here, and she's calling me thief because of that little, shoplifting trip that I did. Yeah, for some reason, when you shoplift, all of the characters know it, and they start calling you thief, which is kind of funny, because this is supposed to be a real emotional moment, but it's kind of ruined by the fact that they're all calling you thief. So you use the hook shot to apparently grab her while you're pulling yourself across that gap, and I don't know how she gets down the mountain from here, but apparently she does. So the monsters apparently captured her while she was trying to sing to the windfish's egg, which raises a bunch of questions. Does she know? Does she know she's in a dream? Does she know what will happen if the windfish wakes up? Kind of interesting to think about. And actually, in the Link's Awakening manga, I haven't actually read this manga. I've read some other Zelda mangas, but not the one for Link's Awakening. Apparently, in the Link's Awakening manga, when Link figures out the true nature of the island, he actually stops gathering the instruments and tries to leave another way. But Marin encourages him to get back to his quest, realizing that in order for Link to leave, the windfish has to wake up. So maybe she figured it out, I don't know. Still a pretty sad story if you think about it that way, too. Anyways, there's the last heart piece hiding behind an unmarked bombable wall. I have no idea how anyone was supposed to find that one either. This is really getting annoying. Anyways, we're in for some more mountain climbing after crossing this gap with a hookshot. There's going to be some falling rocks, which in the Zelda Deep lore are called rocks. I mean, that's what the manual for Zelda 1 called them. So yes, more falling rocks from a mountaintop. What does this remind you of? This screen also seems like it should really have a seashell, but if there was one, it wouldn't show up for me. I've already got the level 2 sword, as I mentioned. Anyways, just a little bit more, and we'll finally have the final dungeon on our hands in all of its confusing glory. On this screen, there is a chest with money in it. I have no idea what purpose money is supposed to serve at this point, but whatever. And coming up, there is a puzzle in this next cave that you have to have the mirror shield in order to pass, or so the developers thought. The puzzle is a giant flamethrower that apparently just constantly spews flames at you, and using the mirror shield you can block the flames because a sheet of glass is just enough to stop flames from hurting you, am I right? This is actually the only puzzle that requires the mirror shield, and it's actually possible to bypass this completely. If you have the life medicine, then if you let the flames kill you, then the invincibility time that you get while your health is refilling due to the potion will allow you to pass by the flamethrower without the mirror shield, which allows you to complete level 8 before level 7, and in fact, if you take the dungeon item from level 8 into level 7, you can kill the boss in one hit with it. Very funny to pull off, and the only true sequence break in Link's Awakening. This version, anyways. Guarding the entrance to level 8 is a mini-boss that you need the third song in order to wake up so you can actually kill him, so it's boss battle time. And this one has a completely unique song for it, which is really strange. This music is not used anywhere else in the game, and, yeah, it's really not an interesting battle at all. His head just moves left and right. Well, that was boring. And so begins the final dungeon of the game, Turtle Rock. Yes, they are just outright using a name from A Link to the Past again. I guess they couldn't come up with a unique dungeon name, or they were just making a reference, because this game is loaded with references to A Link to the Past. This enemy, however, is not from A Link to the Past. He's actually from Zelda 1. This is a Vire, and he's very annoying to kill without the boomerang. If you try to use just the sword, then he just ducks and dodges out of the way, and he's airborne, so you have to jump to hit him. Oh, also, this dungeon has ropes. It's kind of weird that I haven't noticed that enemy at all in the game until now. Also, there's a blue Hinox. Apparently one of the player's guides for Link's Awakening thinks that the blue Hinox is an entirely different enemy from the red Hinox. But no, it's just a palette swap, and not a very strong one at that. Level 2 sword, piece of power, yeah, that's gonna drop him real fast. So this room has a puzzle that we need a certain item in order to get. Maybe you've already guessed what the dungeon item is going to be, but it's going to be a while before we find it. That little item that I just found is a sort of block that fills in gaps with solid ground. It's a really weird puzzle, but it does work very nicely. So this room has yet more money. I don't know why that is. In case you couldn't tell, this dungeon has a bunch of recycled mini-bosses, and the annoying thing is, if you go into one of the underground areas, then they actually all respawn and you have to kill them again. Luckily, with the level 2 sword, it's very easy to— the compass! Hate that compass! So annoying. And there's another Vire in here as well. You can tell it's a Vire from Zelda 1 because after hitting it enough, it splits into two little bats that fly off screen and then suddenly count as killed. That one was guarding a key. Alright. So, we've explored the left part of the dungeon, and yes, you can see that the Hinox did in fact respawn. That's going to be annoying, but I don't even have to wait for him to explode. I don't need the fairy that he drops. So yes, I'm kind of blitzing through this part of the game, simply because I had to backtrack quite a lot in order to find everything, and, you know, all those mini-bosses have to respawn. You don't need to see me kill them over and over again, do you? So there's a magic powder refill if you need it, and press that button on the floor to open up the doors. And in this room, you have whatever these things are called. I've long forgotten at this point. So, first underground area. This dungeon definitely seems fire-themed, so we might be encountering a particular enemy later on, but not in this underground area. Moving on with the dungeon. I like this dungeon color, by the way. It really sells the fire theme of the dungeon. And here we have Beamos, by the way. I forgot to mention that those are in this game as well. And here we have yet another recycled mini-boss. There's got to be something I can say about this guy. Well, at least the ball won't get stuck in the bombable wall that you had to blow through in the previous version of this battle. And you get 2 fairies out of him, just like before. And in this room, we have more ropes. That's literally what these snake enemies are called, by the way. Ropes. I don't know what the idea was there, but there's your stone beak if you need a hint. And you probably will if you're playing this for the first time. Oh boy, if you're playing this for the first time. Hey, we have those fireballs from the Mario series. They are called I have no idea what they're called. So after yet another Mario moment, we have a room with a bombable wall. There's going to be plenty of those in this dungeon. Some of them are just there to create shortcuts back to previous areas. This dungeon is very confusing. You have to jump around different places, you have to take long paths, and if you mess up your path, you have to backtrack and try it again. Yeah, this is not a dungeon that I like very much, and in this room I was looking for the push block that you can push, but it doesn't let you get into that part of the dungeon. In this room, when I get back to it, I started tapping my sword along the wall, because I knew there might be an invisible bombable wall. This game apparently loves those. But yeah, I eventually realized that you have to push these blocks in order to get to that chest. That's the only way to get to them. There should really be some indication that you can push those particular blocks. But yeah, there's your map. You're probably going to need it. After re-killing that mini-boss again, we come to this room, and it has a neat little puzzle in it. I've seen this kind of puzzle before. I'm not sure if it has a name or anything, but the idea is you have to erase all of the holes with that little device. That should really be a Zonai device. Maybe they'll update Tears of the Kingdom with it. And after you get a key from that room, you can enter this room and find a monster in a chest. Well, that wasn't really all that consequential, but now we're back to the main part of the dungeon. And in this room, you can erase the lava with the not Zonai device, but you have to do it properly. So you can push that block and unlock this block, and move on to the next part of the dungeon as soon as you figure out not to fall in the lava like me. Unlike falling in the water without the flippers, falling in the lava will in fact damage you. So off to the left, you will find a room with a bunch of items in case you need to restock. And if you head off to the right, there's yet another Vire. This one is optional. And in this room, you will find a staircase. There's nothing up there for us at the moment, so take the one-way door. And in this room, you can see that bombing things is a very key theme of this room. After blowing up all of the blocks, you will see that the tiles in the floor make an arrow. And that's pointing you to a bombable wall. See, this is how you telegraph bombable walls. You just need to make part of the wall look suspicious, and the player can confirm by tapping their sword along the wall. Unfortunately, we do not have a key for that block at the moment, and lighting up the room doesn't really do anything, so I'm going to have to come back to this room later. Still, good to find the bombable wall, so I know it's there at least. Alright then, let's head back, and hopefully I do not have to kill all the enemies in this room again. No, but the bombable blocks certainly respawn. Alright, this room I can deal with. You just have to kill these 2 Gibdo. We haven't seen a lot of Gibdo throughout Link's Awakening, but they are there. They should probably be weak to fire, but I can't really think of anything in our inventory at the moment that creates fire. Maybe the magic powder does, and... You gotta be kidding me. Bomb snakes again? Seriously, I really hate some of the mini-bosses in this game. Well, after destroying them, I realized that the chest actually spawns in a location you can't get to it, and if you use the stairs to get up there, the bomb snakes are going to respawn and you have to kill them again. In this room, you can use the hook shot to get to this chest, but don't leave the room quite yet. There's secret medicine here if you need it, and you can also restock with all of those items off to the right. But make sure you fall in the lava after you're done, because that will take you back to where you just were, so you don't have to go through all of those passages to get back to this area again. In this room, there's yet another Vire. I'll kill him later, but you can actually go up the stairs and find the final heart piece of the game. This, plus the final heart container from the boss, will give us a full set of hearts. Thank goodness I've collected all of those. I suppose they can get away with hiding the heart containers the way they have, because you don't really need them. They only give you 3 extra hearts if you find them all. So, there was a warp hole there, by the way, in case you need to get back up here and if you need to, like, return to the village or something. And this is a shot of me realizing to my esteemed horror that I have to kill the bomb snakes somehow without jumping off those ledges, so that I can get back to the chest without respawning the enemies. So what you have to do is, you have to have your bombs and you have to throw them off the cliff and into the path of the bomb snakes so that they eat them. That was incredibly annoying to pull off. Please don't do puzzles like that in your games. All that for a simple key that I'm pretty sure you need. Anyways, after going back to kill the Vire, there's not much to this part of the room here. It just leads to getting a chest with the hookshot. And that chest, I think, doesn't really have anything in it besides more money. What is the point of money at this point? The player's gonna have the bow, they're gonna have all 3 songs. I suppose that's a sign of sorts that you need to shoot the eye of this statue with the bow and arrow. I don't think this was really telegraphed to the player very well in the original version of the game, so they might have added that stone owl statue in order to provide a hint that that's what you're supposed to do. A Link to the Past did the same thing with shooting a statue in the eye. Yeah, some puzzles, they aren't really communicated to the player all that well. Anyways, with all those keys, we should be able to advance, and I'm too lazy to equip the mirror shield, so that's why I got hit by the Beamos. Now then, returning to that keyhole block that we couldn't unlock before, we can see that we're going to need another key. Good thing I have one. And lighting these torches, by the way, it does absolutely nothing. Please do not do this. It's a complete waste of magic powder. I mean, it doesn't really give that much light. You can see perfectly fine anyways. Then again, this was probably on the very dimly lit Game Boy Color screen. There are also some bombable walls in this room, but they only go to previous areas of the dungeon, so they're not that important. Although, now that I think about it, if I knew they were there, I could have used bomb arrows to open them up from the other side, but they aren't cracked from the other side, so there'd be no way to know they were there. So using keys to unlock these blocks and the hookshot to get across this gap, we can move on to another part of the dungeon. We should be getting to the mini-boss very soon. Ah, this room can be a bit of a challenge if you're not good at jumping. Thankfully, my Mario skills have carried over into the Zelda series somehow. Well, I got hit there, so maybe not. Link's a bit more floaty than Mario was, though. Alright, so moving on. It is time for the mini-boss, and you might actually recognize this guy. The mini-boss is Blano, who also appears in Oracle of Seasons, and is probably more recognizable from that game, but he's extremely annoying here. You have to get around those boxing gloves in order to hit him, and if he catches you with that uppercut move, by the way, he sends you all the way back to the beginning of the dungeon, and I have been caught by this in the past. So you want to be very, very careful. Don't strike unless you know he's going to miss. Really, I'm making this out to be much harder than it actually is, but you do not want to get sent back to the beginning of this dungeon in particular because of how annoying it is. Anyways, with him defeated, we find that the player has effectively been pranked by Nintendo, because now we need to find a crystal switch to drop those blocks and get to the chest. So where do you think the crystal switch was? What if I told you that it was behind an unmarked bombable wall? Now, before any of you tell me, why didn't you just tap your sword along the wall, or realize that the only way into this room would have been through a bombable wall? Well, passageways into this room are not marked on the map, so I thought that maybe there would be an underground passage that led into here. But, regardless of how stupid this puzzle is, we now finally have the magic rod, which is basically the fire rod from A Link to the Past and is pretty much the most powerful item in the game. It just destroys so many enemies, and you need it for a couple puzzles in this dungeon as well. And as mentioned, it can blow up the boss of level 7 in one shot. And it also destroys Vires in one shot, so that made me very happy that I could finally kill those annoying enemies. And it also melts ice, which should be very obvious. But what the heck is ice doing in a fire dungeon? This is like a volcano, isn't it? Oh, right, dream logic. Also, if you accidentally touch those ice blocks, you get an annoying pop-up. Just like with the rocks, just like with those crystals you have to dash through. And I don't have a key for this door. So, time to go back and solve this little puzzle, which you can only do with a magic rod. And you get another key, so I had to backtrack all the way here. And hey, look! Another mini-boss, and this one's actually immune to the magic rod. Luckily, we have fought this guy before, so it's very easy to basically pull the same trick on him that you did last time, jumping over him and slashing at him from behind. What is even the point of the lava? It doesn't really do anything. Like, this guy is not any harder than he was the last time, but I'm happy to pick up a fairy from him because my stamina is wearing out, both in the game and in real life at this point. Another puzzle, similar to the one that got us a key earlier. I actually failed on the first attempt, because I didn't remember how you're supposed to do it. Yeah, you don't want to leave a one-tile-wide gap like that. That'll make it impossible to do this. Here is the proper solution. This seems like a puzzle that would come up in the Oracle games, to be totally honest. Talking about those games makes me want to go back and play them. And I have been watching some gameplay videos of them to remind myself of what it's like. Anyways, there's your boss key. Now we just have to find the boss door, or rather, the passage to the boss door. You might have noticed earlier that you have to go through an underground passage to get there, and it turns out that it's this passageway. This passageway also has a puzzle of its own. There are ice blocks here, but you don't want to melt all of them. You only want to melt specific blocks so that you can get through using the blocks you didn't melt as platforms. So, this is the solution. Use a combination of the Rock's Feather and the Magic Rod to melt what you need to, and hopefully don't trigger the annoying pop-up. Seriously, I was airborne at the time. Couldn't you put in a check for being airborne or not? This one is pretty simple. Melt the bottom row, then melt this column, and you're basically through. Just try not to trigger the annoying pop-up. You can see that I'm being very careful about it. And it's finally time for the boss battle, which is, kind of, well, I'll just let it play out. Why don't you just watch it and learn for yourself? He can actually run into the little flame that gets left behind. That's amusing. But yes, you just spam the magic rod and you win every single time. What a lame boss. That guy was literally made of fire. How is he being damaged by magical fire? I guess it is the magic rod rather than the fire rod, but hey, full heart containers at last, and we have the final instrument, which means it's going to be time to wake up the windfish at last. That is going to do it for this video, as I wrap this up and listen to that actually pretty amusing drum beat. I will mention that in the final video of Link's Awakening DX, we will wrap up all of the optional content, especially stuff that was added in Link's Awakening DX, and then it will be time to see the ending to this glorious adventure. See you for that, everybody!